I make no bones about it. I like trains, and I like high-speed trains even better.
Trains are, for lack of a better word, sexy. Going at 200 miles per hour on land sounds very exciting, very futuristic.
Building a new system of high-speed rail in America will be faster, cheaper, and easier than building more freeways or adding to an already overburdened aviation system, and everybody stands to benefit.
Politicians see opportunity for a legacy for themselves.
We're making to achieve the goal through the development of high-speed rail projects that will extend eventually all across this nation.
The California high-speed rail project was designed to connect San Francisco to Los Angeles in under 3 hours. But today, Governor Gavin Newsom scaled back the project, saying the high-speed rail will now only stretch from Bakersfield to Merced.
Abandoning the high-speed rail entirely means we will have wasted billions and billions of dollars with nothing but broken promises, partially fulfilled commitments, and lawsuits.
Obama's 2009 stimulus bill dangled billions to states to get them to invest in this high-speed rail. Well, now, a lot of states smartly turned down the seed money, knowing full well that the final cost could be a lot more, could be double or even triple the original projections. So they didn't want to be left holding the bag.
So what exactly doomed this project?
Absolutely everything, Sandra. Bad management, unrealistic projections, condemning farmers' land meant lawsuits and delays, fault lines in mountains proved impossible to avoid, zero private investment, inaccurate ridership surveys, rising subsidies for ticket prices. Officials misled voters about every aspect of this boondoggle from the day it was approved for $10 billion in 2008. For this train connecting L.A. to San Francisco in 2 hours and a half, well, Republicans opposed it, but Democrats and unions supported it.
And the only people who benefited were the countries that bought our debt to fund it and the consultants who lined their pockets, selling this as a panacea for congested roads.
There's no private money in this deal. State voters were promised this train connecting Northern and Southern California for an investment priority. They were told over homelessness, second-rate schools, and crumbling roads. They're out about $10 billion at least. Federal taxpayers, thanks to President Obama, are likely to lose $3.5 billion.
President Trump then tweeted about the decision. He said this: California has been forced to cancel the massive bullet train project after having spent and wasted many billions of dollars. They owe the federal government $3.5 billion. We want that money back. Now, whole project is a green disaster. But then Governor Newsom fired back on Twitter, and he writes this: fake news. We're building high-speed rail connecting the Central Valley and beyond. This is California's money allocated by Congress for this project. We're not giving it back.
Newsom is basically shutting down huge parts of the high-speed rail project, but he's keeping all of the money.
With all due respect, I have no interest in sending back $3.5 billion of federal funding that was allocated to this project to President Donald Trump.
No economic argument for it. This is a political decision. It is going to waste more money, but not as much as originally planned.
So by not stopping the project entirely, Newsom hopes to avoid repaying Washington. He also hopes a Green New Deal Democrat would win the White House in 2020. And they, of course, could sink new federal dollars in the name of climate change.
So, Chuck, what was suddenly a California story is now a national story because light rail is a centerpiece of the Green New Deal. Why didn't it work in California?
Well, it got too expensive. The travel times were way too slow. The ticket prices were about double what you'd pay for Southwest Airlines. And it became very apparent that they promised something that they couldn't deliver.
California's high-speed rail line was sold to voters on the bold promise that it will someday whisk passengers between San Francisco and Los Angeles in under 3 hours. 9 years later, the project has turned into such a disaster that its biggest political champion is now suing to stop it from happening.
They said they were going to have this project that would have all this private money and investment, that wouldn't have to cause taxes to go up. Look, they haven't gotten a penny in private investment. The federal government's put $3.5 billion into it, and now they're in material breach of their agreement with the federal government.
The high-speed rail is more than a train project. It's about economic transformation.
Baruch Feigenbaum says that starting construction, even though there isn't enough money allocated to finish the project, is part of a deliberate plan to extract further taxpayer subsidies.
Their strategy is to get enough of it built so that basically there's going to be so much money sunk in the project that they're going to argue it's going to be cheaper to complete it than it's going to be to abandon it.
The California project has also become a land grab.
This was going to go right through the middle of Kings County, right across people's farmlands, and we had a farmer whose land it was going across, a fellow named John Toss, and his name is on the lawsuit.
By design, high-speed rail lines require wide swaths of land, which often means seizing property.
Can anybody tell us what we're sacrificing this stuff for?
Frank Oliveira's family has owned this parcel for generations, but the state is using its eminent domain authority to forcibly purchase thousands of acres of prime farmland from Oliveira and others up and down the Central Valley.
Why is our livelihoods here being destroyed for this project that will never materialize?
Voters supported the bond measure to pay for construction on the condition that the train would be self-sustaining. According to one recent estimate, the project's latest iteration would suck up at least $100 million in annual subsidies.
The ballot measure prohibits taxpayer subsidy, and that was an important part of convincing voters in 2008 to approve the bond measure.
They're using a blended track so it won't get to the speed they promised. Because it's going through the Central Valley, it won't meet the timetable that was laid out in the ballot initiative.
It will be conventional rail, which in a way is parallel to existing Amtrak service.
The state Supreme Court found ballot language used to sell the project misleading. Ridership surveys inflated, ticket prices unrealistic, and financial projections unfounded.
If you're subsidizing the riders on high-speed rail, that means you're taking money away from the classroom and from our first responders.
It's the future.
As for the often promised environmental benefits of high-speed rail, Flashman acknowledges they won't materialize in California.
Ironically, doing this high-speed rail construction with the huge amounts of concrete and steel involved is actually increasing greenhouse gas production.
It would probably take 50 to 80 years in order to negate all of the greenhouse gases emitted during the building of the line.
The whole thing on mass transit outside of corridors like New York makes no sense at all. It tells you where you have to go, and when you get to where you go, you still have to have a car. And people love the flexibility of the automobile. Get over it.
Instead of a light at the end of the tunnel, the project is about to hit a budgetary brick wall. According to McCarthy, President Trump is not inclined to throw good money after bad, and the state cannot bankroll the project alone.
Meanwhile, there is no set date on when the high-speed rail station will start construction in Bakersfield.
California's project is extraordinary in some ways. As envisioned, it will be both the slowest bullet train in the world and the most expensive.